What if I told you that one of the cringiest rom-coms of the 2000s was secretly a blueprint for how to survive an overbearing parent? Welcome back to Ladies First. I'm Andrea, and today we're dissecting Because I Said So, the 2007 rom-com that somehow serves manic comedy, unresolved trauma, and wedding cakes with a side of emotional manipulation. Whether this film is close to your heart or you've repressed it like a bad therapy session, it's actually a brilliant case study in boundaries, selfhood, and breaking the cycle. Here are our top 3 tips for all you Millies out there. Tip 1. Take your power back. In the film, we meet Daphne, the well-meaning but overbearing mother who believes she knows what's best for her daughter Millie, better than Millie does herself. Daphne's solution to Millie's singlehood? Secretly post a personal ad, vet all the applicants, and hand-pick a man she deems worthy. She doesn't stop there. She chooses Millie's dress, stages the meeting, and subtly pressures her toward the ideal man, Jason. Therapists call this kind of over-involvement enmeshment. It's a term used in family systems theory to describe a dynamic where personal boundaries are blurred and individual identities get lost in the relationship. In these families, decisions are less about personal growth and more about appeasement. Enmeshment trauma can show up as a lack of boundaries, a sense of responsibility for a parent's feelings, and a lack of privacy. It often involves pressure to live up to parental expectations, avoiding conflict, and struggling with a lack of identity outside the family. Over time, this can lead to complicated interpersonal relationships. One key scene shows Millie wearing a polka dot dress her mother selected because Jason, her mother's chosen man, likes polka dots. It seems small, even sweet, but it's a subtle reminder that Millie is performing a version of herself tailored by her mother's preferences. If any of this feels familiar, you might be dealing with a similar dynamic. The good news is that change doesn't require a massive confrontation. Start small by setting micro-boundaries. Say no to something without guilt. Make a personal decision without asking for approval. Then, if you can, seek support from a therapist who specializes in codependency or family systems. The process of reclaiming autonomy isn't about rejecting your family, it's about remembering who you are when no one else is speaking for you. Tip 2. Follow your own timeline. At one point, Daphne says,
"If she keeps up this pattern of wrong choice after wrong choice, okay, one thing when you're in your 20s, but 20 years later, it's not so pretty."
She doesn't say this to be cruel, she says it because she's terrified. This line isn't just about Millie's future, it's about Daphne's past and her own grief. This is an example of intergenerational trauma transmission. It's a psychological concept that explains how patterns, fears, and unresolved pain often pass from one generation to the next, not through storytelling or intention, but through behavior and expectation. When a parent hasn't addressed their own emotional wounds, those wounds often get reenacted in their children's lives. Daphne grew up in a world where a woman's security was often tied to partnership and family. Her timeline was shaped by societal norms that praised early marriage and punished independence. Millie, by contrast, lives in a world that offers more freedom, but also less certainty. She wants to define success for herself, and that makes Daphne deeply uncomfortable. One of the clearest examples of this tension is how Daphne tries to sabotage Millie's connection with Johnny, the man Millie chooses for herself. Johnny is kind, emotionally attuned, and genuinely curious about Millie's happiness, but because he doesn't fit Daphne's image of an ideal partner, she tries to edge him out. She warns Millie that Johnny has heartbreak written all over him and pressures her toward Jason instead, the stable, polished choice Daphne approves of. But what's really happening here isn't just maternal concern. It's a mother trying to force her daughter onto the same timeline she followed herself. Safety over authenticity, structure over joy. Tip 3. Love isn't control.
You know, that's it. So out of control. What did I do this time? I really...
Jason, can I get you another one of these? Oh, I need one? Oh, yeah, they're just getting started.
Throughout the film, Daphne claims everything she does is out of love. That may be true, but love, without respect for autonomy, can quickly become something else. She lies, she manipulates, she stages emotional breakdowns to keep her daughters tethered to her. The movie treats this behavior as comedy, but if we replaced mother with partner, it would become clear this is emotional manipulation. Let's bring in ethics for a moment. Philosopher Immanuel Kant believed that moral actions are rooted in intention. If you meant well, that mattered. But philosopher John Stuart Mill, and frankly most therapists, would argue that outcome matters more. It's not enough to mean well if your actions cause harm. Daphne even rigs a game of rock, paper, scissors between her daughters so that Millie will have to take care of her after a staged emotional collapse. It's a moment meant to be silly, but it reveals a serious truth. She uses vulnerability as a form of emotional blackmail. If someone's love makes you feel smaller, more anxious, or deeply obligated, it's time to pay attention. Love should feel like support, not surveillance. One useful practice is to reflect after interactions. Do you feel seen, or do you feel managed? Do you feel closer to yourself or further away? That discomfort is information. You're not overreacting. The hardest part of this work isn't setting the boundary, it's sitting with the guilt that follows. But not all guilt is a sign of wrongdoing. Sometimes it's just a sign that you're doing something unfamiliar, like prioritizing yourself. Final takeaways. By the end of Because I Said So, Millie finally makes the only choice that ever really mattered. She chooses herself. She stops performing, she walks away from Jason, the man her mother engineered for her, and she reunites with Johnny, the man who truly sees and accepts her. And most importantly, she begins to rebuild her life based on her own wants, not her mother's fears. The film might wrap everything in a soft wedding cake ending, but the deeper message is this. Sometimes, love means letting go of the urge to please, the trauma you inherited, or the emotional baggage that was never truly yours to carry. Here's what to remember. If someone else's voice is louder than your own, it's time to re-establish your sense of self. You don't owe anyone your life story just because they gave you a chapter. If love feels more like pressure than peace, it's time to redefine what love means to you. If you've had to deal with a Daphne in your life, share your story in the comments. How did you find your way back to yourself? And if this helped you feel seen, pass it along to someone else who might need the same. For more thoughtful, honest takes on women in film, like this video and subscribe to Ladies First.